Giants fans, what is going on? Welcome to the offseason where you get to sit through 3 to 4 different variations of our introduction videos, courtesy of Craig. Craig is very good with the artwork on that. Truth, don't you agree?
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
We have so many options to choose from. I just randomly go through it. But look, we are back. We are here with Truth. Truth is resident expert when it comes to draft, free agency, when it comes to the actual evaluation of talent. Truth is the guy. There's no doubt about it. This is our second year doing this. Last year we did a Big Blue Rush draft show as well. We're going to cycle in guests from week to week. And obviously, most importantly, we're going to break down the prospects that may end up coming to the Giants. And Truth, you called a couple of them last year. Darian Bevers, perfect example, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't think he'd last till 6th round, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I think we were all a little surprised by that. And then, of course, obviously, we're all disappointed he got hurt.
Yeah.
Receivers, they go. There's almost 5 that go per round, so we didn't get to Wandale. Shoot, I mean, I think we got to Bellinger. We got him. Well, look, we do 10 players at each position, and of course we did Evan Neal and Thibs, but we didn't think we would get both of them.
No, I didn't think so.
Yeah. So look, I mean, we're back again. We're going to spend most of today, everybody, just trying to go over the free agent options. Senior Bowl performance, and then of course we'll talk about the Giants' biggest needs because that's top of mind right now. As the season just ended, great season by the way. We're all happy, but clearly there's definitely some room for improvement and definitely some players that they have to replace. Truth, wouldn't you agree to that?
Oh yeah, look, nobody expected to them to do what they did. I know we had some before the season predictions for records, and some of us were close, but to make the playoffs for the first time since 2016, it was a great year for the New York Giants. It really was.
And to win it, I mean, we're all disappointed with that last loss. They didn't even show up, right? But the fact that we got to the divisional round, we beat Minnesota. We exited the same round the Buffalo Bills did, and they're light years ahead of us. This is a lot. And I don't care what anyone says about Minnesota. Yeah, okay, they may have been some close wins, obviously, but they were a good team. They have a lot of talent, and the Giants have them down. And I have confidence in coaching, and I have confidence in a lot more players now than I used to. And obviously, hopefully, the Giants take this year to load up on more talent, and they go into next year and they're competing for the division.
Yeah, I mean, listen, a lot goes into having a winning season. You have to have the players perform. You got to avoid serious injuries. Of course, the coaching staff needs to stay intact. And I know we talked about that the other night about 2 coaches that we have. And I think one is coming back and one may not, but that's for another day. But I think the Giants are going to be on the uprise. I think they're in the right direction.
I agree with you. They got the backbone in place, but there's obviously, again, there's some holes. There's a reason they were a 9-win team, not necessarily a 12-win team. Obviously, they had a tough division, but let's talk about those biggest needs because they're pretty evident. Number one need the Giants have. I'm going to go with wide receiver. Who do you think it is?
I'm going with inside linebacker.
Wow, you're going with linebacker. Okay.
Yeah.
And what makes you say inside linebacker?
Well, if you look at what we have right now that played the majority, we had Jaylen Smith. And then we had McFadden who played a lot. And then we brought in, I think it was Gerard Davis through waivers. I believe he was cut, so we brought him in. We were, I think, 26th in the league against the run. We just don't have an impact inside linebacker we had with Blake Martinez was here. And definitely when he left, and I understand it's all about business and a numbers game, but it did show in our run defense when he was not here any longer. So I think we need to get if you look at the season, wide receivers, yes, we need help there, but it got better at the end of the year. The inside linebackers didn't really get better.
No, they didn't improve. And Craig brought something up on the show the other night with the linebackers. Micah McFadden looks like a guy that we want to succeed, obviously. We did evaluate him during the offseason last year. But yeah, he's never really quite made one of those plays where it's like, smack mouth, back, tackle in the backfield, anything like that.
Yeah.
And he was a late pick. I mean, it's not like it's to be expected that he would dominate, but, we would hope he'd be a staple player. And I'm not really seeing that. And then obviously you're right. The other linebacker spot, extremely disappointing. When it comes to the run game, I mean, we were getting torched.
Yeah. I mean, look, McFadden's a rookie and growing pains are expected with rookies. Some guys take longer to, have the game slow down for them. And I think for him, it's going to be a learning. He's a work of progress, like we mentioned on Tuesday.
Right. I agree. So, all right, if you're going to say linebackers number one, I mean, I would imagine you're going to say the number 2 position would be wide receiver, right? Or do you think it's something else?
Oh no, it is. Yeah, I would say wide receiver is definitely number 2. I think we need more depth than that, not just a solid one guy. I think we need. I mean, I can see the Giants drafting 2 of them at the wide receiver position, and of course we'll get into that. But there are quite a few out there in the draft that the Giants will have the opportunity to select.
Yeah, and it's a little bit challenging. I know a lot of fans, we evaluate the top guys, and for good reasons, we're not drafting high this year. My gut tells me they're going to go with wide receiver at number 1.
Could.
Again, if I look back at history, it's like I always want a wide receiver. It's like, all right, just take care of the problem right now, get him. But the reality is, it's probably best if they just go with the best available player. That position. I don't need the best guard in football at that height. Go ahead and get the best edge or the best wide receiver. Figure it out. Best cornerback.
Yeah, when you're drafting at 25, it's going to be hard. We don't know how the board's going to develop.
Right.
By the time the Giants pick, we've seen it. We've all seen how crazy picks get selected, and guys we never expected to get picked at a certain spot get picked, and some guys go beyond that. We don't know. So you're right. It could be a wide receiver. It could be a cornerback. I mean, that's another need that we'll get into, but it's always a crapshoot. We don't know who's going to be there.
Always. And, on to the next position, though. I mean, our guy Chris right here.
Yeah, that's right. He's right about this one.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Center.
That's my third need, interior lineman.
I don't feel that lack of confidence going into next year with the guard situation. If you keep, Glenn was a little bit disappointing. I think you can afford one, slightly below average guard on the offensive line. Center's a position where you really want a good, talented football player, because especially there's that leadership component too that centers usually have.
Yeah,
and they're reading emotions, and that's the most underrated trait of any player. So yeah, we really need a good center, and we don't have that right now. And I don't think I don't want to put Gates back at center. I want to keep him at guard, and then see what options are available. I think that'd be a great day 2 pick.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll talk about somebody who could be there on day 2, who did very well in the Senior Bowl week. So again, I agree. I think center is on the interior line. That is the biggest need, other than beside guard.
Totally. Always a pleasure when he comes through.
I know.
All right. Well, look. I mean, so our top 3 we have so far. You think it's linebacker number 1? I'm saying it's wide receiver number 1, just because I'm watching last season. What it would mean for Jones to finally get that true number 1 receiver. Mm-hmm. That's just where I'm coming from. However, you are right. I mean, getting torched on defense is infuriating. It's brutal to watch.
Who do you have at number 2? What position?
Number 2, I have inside linebacker.
All right, so we kind of flip-flop there.
Yeah, we just flip-flop that. And then number 3, we both agreed at center. And then number 4, I have cornerback. Now, do you
Me too.
That or okay. Look, if we could just add one guy who can consistently do his job at cornerback, I think we're in good shape in the secondary. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I believe they will go cornerback. And again, we don't know when. A certain guy could fall in the first round who was projected to go in the top 20, and he's sitting there. The Giants are going to grab him, And
right.
If not, there are some talented guys in day 2 that I can see the Giants going after. A lot of quality cornerbacks on day 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no doubt within the top 3 rounds, they'll probably walk away with one.
Yeah, they got 4 picks, so they do have a chance to grab a corner with one of those 4 picks. Yes.
Yep, totally agree. So, okay, we talked about the 4 biggest needs. The biggest question is, what's the fifth biggest need? I'll let you speak first, and then I'll kind of give you my answer because I got to get technical with it. What do you think?
Okay. Well, I think because we were very bad against the run, I already touched on this with the inside linebacker. We were 26 against the run. I think we gave up 148 yards a game. I think you have to get a defensive lineman, especially if Jihad Ward does not return. Now, he could get a better offer from another team because he did have a pretty good year for the Giants. He did everything they expect him to do. He was a good seal the edge, good against the run. He was a good team player. Other teams see that too. So, they may offer him more than what the Giants or Joe Shane may want to. So if that's the case, we got to look somewhere to get that replacement. It could be in the draft. And
what's the word on how much he's probably going to ask for?
I don't know. I think he had $1 million last year. The Giants got him for the 1 year $1 million. I would think, and I didn't even look and try to research this, but I would think he's going to get, he's going to want to play, obviously, a starter position and more snaps. I think he's going to get at least 3 times that. I think 3 man. I think easily he'll probably get something like that. I don't know if the Giants will go for that. I don't know.
Personally, I want him back on that salary. I mean, let me ask you this. I mean, if the Giants bring him back, do you feel like we're set then at the defensive line? Would you even care to try to draft another? Or
I wouldn't draft one early in the first 4 rounds if he's back. Remember they got a lot of picks in day 6 and 7. They got 5 picks in those 2 rounds, so they could look for a guy who can maybe be more of a middle guy. Because remember, I don't think they're going to bring back Ellis or the other Johnson that they picked up in free agency last year. So I don't think they're going to bring back those guys. So they got to get more beef. And I know Davidson's going to come back, DJ Davison, but I still think they need another guy in there.
I agree. But they could use more talent there. But my feeling is this. Between our 5th biggest need is probably an additional player at one of the positions we listed earlier. Maybe not cornerback or center. We probably don't need 2 of those, especially not center. But wide receiver, inside linebacker. I mean, look, I would argue we don't even have a real number like wide receiver 2. Hodgins is okay. Hey, Richie James got better as the season went along, but I don't know if it's ideal to just have one great wide receiver and then kind of have the rest of them, Hodgins or worse. I'm not convinced, but Hodgins did have a decent season, played much better throughout the season. So my thought is, they're probably going to look to add 2 receivers at least.
I agree with you. Especially, I don't think Slayton's going to come back. I think
no, and I don't know if Shepard does either.
Yeah, Shepard, he's another one. Yeah, I think James has a chance to come back, especially when Wan'Dale Robinson may not be ready when the season starts. We don't know exactly.
Right.
Well, I see some reports that he will be. I see some he's not. So I don't know. But James, he could come back. Or again, just like Slayton, some team could come in and offer him more money where the Giants don't want to go that high.
Right, exactly. And then, look, we move on to inside linebacker. I don't think we have 2 starters at inside linebackers on this roster right now.
No, that's why, and we'll get into that in one of our next topics. I think they're going to go in that direction to get another inside linebacker.
Last time the Giants drafted an inside linebacker at number or just a linebacker in general in the first round, I think was still Carl Banks. I think is the last one.
He wasn't inside linebacker, though. He was outside.
He wasn't. I said inside at first. I should have corrected myself to outside. Now, things get a little tricky because technically, a 3-4 defense, the edge is kind of a quasi-linebacker. It's a little different.
I got you. Yeah.
So in Thibs' case, he's not obviously a linebacker. He's down, but it's the 3-3, whatever.
Yeah.
So, all right, look. We talked about the biggest needs. There was almost no disagreement whatsoever except for the flip-flop you and I had in the first part. Everybody watching right now probably agrees to that to a degree. Why don't we talk about the Senior Bowl? Because I know you did a lot of due diligence on this. I know you love to break down the players, and you're very good at it. So why don't you give me an opinion of, I know you wanted to bring to my attention John Michael Schmitz, the center. Tell me more about this guy.
Well, out of Minnesota, I think this is pretty obvious, and everybody on Twitter who really does their due diligence and studies these prospects, we're on the same page. This kid is the complete package. He's big, 6'4", 320. He's got great hands. He's got great footwork. I watched his one-on-ones, and he was totally in control of his opponent, whoever came in on him. He did such a great job of locking the guy down. Once he gets his hands on you, he really it's hard for that defensive lineman to get through him.
Yeah.
And he's really good, which you didn't see so much in those one-on-ones, but he's very good in space. I watched a lot of film on him, on sweeps and screens, and that guy, when he goes out and blocks downfield, he doesn't miss. He's not one of those big linemen that's clumsy and a corner can evade him and duke him. This guy, man, he's right on you. And that's what the Giants need. The Giants need more linemen who are more athletic and they can block more in open space, because it'll open their playbook up more, because we know how bad the Giants were in screens this year. I mean,
terrible. I mean, that's a frustrating point. It's like, almost every time you watch a team play the Giants, they're killing us with the screens, but we go out there and try to run a screen. It never works.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible, because a lineman in space cannot block a guy. They just duke him and go around him.
Right.
And I saw it many times, especially with Feliciano. I saw that with. So
yeah.
I think
back in the late 2000s, one of the attributes for offensive line that was so good back then that was underrated was their athletic ability. They were very good in open space and pulling, and even though they didn't really look like it, right, because they're big dudes, they were athletic.
Yeah, you look at the Giants' history. First they had Bart Oates, then they had Sean O'Hara, and even Sherbert filled in there, and even Kevin Booth played a little center, and those guys were all good.
Yep,
they were all good in the open space, and the Giants, man, the Giants excelled.
They would pull tackles. Right. They would do tackle pulls around tight ends, and that is something you really don't see very frequently. So they executed it, though.
Yeah, they did. They did. Well, anyway, this kid, if he has a good combine, he could move up too high for the Giants, because he may be an early second rounder, and then the Giants are picking 59 in round 2, so I don't know if he'll be there when that pick comes, because I think this kid's going to shine during the combine.
Gotcha. And you think that is there a chance that he goes to the second round, because that would be very beneficial to the Giants?
Yes, of course. Yeah, and there's always a chance. There are guys who we had no reason to believe they would ever fall to us in second round, and they did. I mean, the two guys I could think of were McKinney and Ojulari. They fell into the second round, and every mock draft I saw, they were going in the first round. Yeah. So we don't know. We don't know. You're right.
All right. Well, I know another guy you wanted to bring up was Keion White. Am I right? The defensive lineman?
Oh, we're going to stay on the line? Okay, yeah. Keion White out of Georgia Tech. This kid, I'll tell you, I didn't know much about him about 3 weeks ago. And I just started going through, looking at guys possibly going on late day 2 into early day 3 picks, and Keion White came up. And I looked at his measurements. Then I started looking at his film. And remember, he came from a team, Georgia Tech, where he wasn't afford the luxury of having studs around him on his defense. And this guy's a good player. I mean, he penetrates. He's a stout against the run. And when I saw him in the Senior Bowl, he did everything that you saw in game film. He dominated at the line when he went against players, certain linemen. And he's pretty good size. He runs under a 5 in the 40-yard dash, and he's big. He's 285. So I like him.
Gotcha. And Georgia Tech, right? So there he is. He's not getting much, exposure, if you will, to be in a good situation. So I mean, I always mentally factor that in. If they're killing it on a team like Georgia Tech, I do like to hear that. Actually.
And what's funny, Spartan, is that, I've seen some mock drafts now after the Senior Week Bowl that they're putting this guy now possibly first round, and they may, they probably know more than I do. I don't see that. especially with the talent we have in certain positions coming out of this draft. But he might have slipped now into my mind into late day 2. I think.
For sure. Well, look, we got some comments out here. I mean, Christy is agreeing. I get Schmitz with the 25th.
Wow, so there you go.
Afterwards. It's opinion.
All right, so there you go. Here's a guy. No. Chris thinks that he's going to fall in the first, and he could, especially if he has a great combine. You get a bona fide center who could play at day 1 and go in there, and that's gold. That's gold if you're an organization.
I'm with you. And here's one player that Chris, by the way, who I met up at the Meadowlands. Jalen Hyatt is a wide receiver that he likes. And we'll get into that, Chris, further down the road. We're going to do the draft show for wide receivers. Obviously, it might be the most popular episode. We'll break him down then. All right. You got another guy you wanted to talk about. You want to talk about Rashee Rice.
Yes, wide receiver, since we'll parlay from what Chris just talked about, Hyatt. Here's a kid at SMU. He's pretty good size. I think he's like 6 foot, 200 pounds, and he runs really well, almost a 4.4, and great route runner, good hands, and he did well again in the Senior Bowl. And here's a guy who should be there on day 2 for the Giants, especially second round, 59. He should be there if they pass on a wide receiver in round 1. This guy certainly could be an option with the their second pick of the day.
Second pick is what he's projected to be.
Oh yeah, second round 2. That's what I'm seeing. And again, he can move up. He can go high 2s, but right now they're talking mid to late round 2.
Gotcha. And SMU. Okay, so he doesn't go against the best cornerbacks in the world.
No, he doesn't. He had a good year, though. He had a good year, over 1,300 yards.
But that's what the Senior Bowl is for. If you're a fourth-year guy and you're going to the league and the biggest knock against you is the lack of talent you're playing against, this is your time to shine because now you're going against a whole bunch of dudes that, not always are the first-round pick, but they're top 3 draft picks. And that's very important for these players.
Yep, and he did well against those corners. Yes, he did.
For sure. Well, look, I want to talk about this one wide receiver because I'm not biased, I promise. But at Michigan State, we got Jaylen.
Oh, what a coincidence!
Who did have a very successful game or a successful Senior Bowl?
Yes, he did.
So here's my personal take about Jaylen Reed, the best unit on Michigan State last year, who was a disappointing team across the board, 5-7, the year after winning a New Year's Six bowl. That was awful. Jaylen Reed was a bright spot. The offensive coordinator Michigan State has is not very good. The quarterback regressed. He was not finding open guys. But when he threw it to Jaylen Reed, and really, if you look at the last 2 years of Jaylen Reed, he was making great plays. And he does a couple things very nicely. Ability to catch in traffic, absolutely outstanding. Yards after catch, very impressive. He doesn't really have that turn speed quite like Odell does, but he does make it work. And the one thing that he does that a lot of wide receivers fail to do is keeping his feet moving. Similar to what Marshawn Lynch was like with the Seahawks, where he kept his feet going at all times. Jaylen Reed does that. He does do a very good job of evading tackles and getting off guys. It's very impressive. He is a guy, I don't even know if he's a day 2 guy, but I would absolutely love to have Jaylen Reed on this team. I think he would be a phenomenal value pick that the Giants could pick up. No doubt.
You're seeing him early day 3. Is that what you're saying? Early day 3?
I'm going to say that. He's probably a 3rd round, 4th round guy. I mean, if we're missing something, then maybe he's a 5th round. I doubt that, though. I think he's going to go in the 3rd or the 4th.
Okay.
But, again, very underrated. And it's like we saw him do great, even though he took advantage of every opportunity that came his way, is what I'm trying to say here. He didn't have a lot of instances where it wasn't like that, the ball went his way and he dropped the ball. There's none of that. It just, by circumstance, again, another guy that needed the Senior Bowl to prove that, and the dude absolutely did.
Yeah.
Did you watch him at the Pro Senior Bowl at all?
Yeah, I did, and he did really well in the one-on-one drills. I saw him, good route runner. That's what I noticed about him. when he was doing the one-on-ones. They had a hard time covering him. I don't know how fast he runs. I'm going to check up on him a little more, see how quick he is. But he did impress me, though.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, the next guy I wanted to talk about was Cody. I think I'm saying a Mauch. Help me out, Truth.
I think it's Cody Mauch.
I got it yesterday when I was watching, but now
I think it's Mauch. I don't think it's pronounced. It's Mauch. But anybody out there who, I think that's what I've heard them call him, Cody Mauch.
Yeah, Cody Mauch. There we go. Out of North Dakota State, the dude looks like a big ginger Santa Claus. My opinion of his game is that there's definitely things that he still has to work on. But again, guy that played in North Dakota State needs to prove that he can play against elite defensive linemen. His backstory is, and you hear this a lot more frequently now with offensive linemen. He was a tight end that converted to offensive lineman. So he was in high school tight end, became an offensive lineman in college. That's happening now. The name of the game is speed. And so you're seeing that at every level, like the defensive backs in high school are becoming linebackers if they're a little slower than the top guys. Linebackers become defensive linemen, and the same thing on offense. Receivers become tight ends become offensive linemen. Good example of that. He's got a lot of athletic ability. He's a big dude, clearly was able to put on a lot of muscle, and his run blocking is extremely good. I think him against a defensive tackle and pass blocking is very nice as well. I do concern myself a little bit with a very fast, juking linebacker. It's going to be a little difficult for him to adjust to the speed of the NFL, but that can come with time. What else did you think of the guy?
Well, I think he's going to be moved exclusively into the guard position, NFL level. I think. I mean, he just has a look of a lineman. He just has that nasty, doesn't bathe in a few days. That kind of look that you like to see in the offensive lineman.
Looks like a Viking, right?
Like what?
He looks like a Viking. He's a Nordic guy. From
He just fits the role perfectly, and I think that transitioning to the inside is going to make him more valuable and more productive when he gets to the NFL level.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think he's pretty good. I don't know if he's necessarily day one. I could see him going late second, early first, because again, it's all about
early third.
Opportunity and what these guys are valuing in terms of the athletic ability, because he will probably translate very well to the offensive lineman in terms of that. Again, pass blocking against a fast rusher, that's probably going to be a weakness, but that's something he can overcome. And if he's an interior lineman, it's something he can easily get over compared to if he was a tackle.
Oh, yeah. Yep, absolutely.
All right. Last guy I want to cover from the Senior Bowl is Darius Rush. He's a cornerback, and he had terrific turn speed, which is very important just in football in general. There's guys that don't step on the football field, until they're juniors in high school and then go to the pros. Well, one of the traits they almost always have, similar to Lawrence Taylor, is that ability to turn quickly. And when I watched him, it was absolutely amazing how quick he could turn. There were a few plays that he got burnt because he overbit. When he's reading the route and trying to determine what route they're going to run, he did have a few instances where he thought,
He's just wrong.
He overbit. But look, if he does correctly anticipate the wide receiver route, he kills it. He does a great job in mirroring and shadowing. He's got that turn speed. Like I said, what he's got to be better at is just reading the route, because that's not going to translate well to the NFL at all. If he gets burnt by one of the Eagles receivers, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Yeah,
and I think he'll learn that when he gets drafted and plays against a high level. Right. I think they'll teach him not to be so daring. You don't want to take that aggressive out of somebody, but you want to have controlled aggression. Exactly. And I think he'll learn it. And he, like you said, he's excellent with those hips. He turns and he can recover quickly. I saw that in a couple of plays as one-on-one drills. And he's like a lot of cornerbacks, he's a really good athlete, very good athlete.
Oh, terrific athlete. Look, he's definitely what I love is, okay, he overbites, but that's the coachable part. What's not coachable is the speed. Like you can't coach that turning speed. There's nothing you can do about it.
Right. Right.
So very impressed by him. I'm seeing day 2 guy. Same situation here. What about you?
Yeah. I see late day 2, depending on the draft board goes. And again, there are a lot of talented positions that's going to take up a lot of spots early in the draft. So I can see him going late day 2, maybe if he does fall early day 3, early 4th round. But and listen, you get him in the 4th round, you got talent. You got a good player there. So
yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. Look, that covers everybody. I wanted to touch base on the Senior Bowls. Yeah. You got any honorable mentions? Any other guys you want to talk about?
Well, there were a lot of other guys. The tight end position did very well in the Senior Bowl. A couple of Musgrave did a good job. That kid, especially after he caught the ball, he showed a lot of speed for his size. The kid's a big boy. He did very well. And the kid out of Purdue did a very good job. I'm trying to think of his name at this moment. He did a very good job. I think it's Dorham. Someone out there. I think it's tight end out of Purdue. He did a very good
job. Payne Durham?
Yeah, it was Durham. That's it. Yeah. I didn't know his first name. He did a very good job too. Made a catch in the bowl game and with someone right on him. Shows good hands. There's a guy who will definitely be there on day 3, I think. So, and we talk about
Purdue has really taken off the last 2 years in football. They just lost their coach, so that's going to come to an end. But they did just come off a very successful season. Silent.
Yeah, they did.
All right. Well, look, we cover everybody from the Senior Bowls. I mean, I know there's a draft show, but why don't we talk about, because we talked about the needs of the Giants. Why don't we talk about options in free agency?
Okay. Well, real quick before you start, we all know that Giants do have more cap space this year than last year, but they do have priority within the house and within their own roster that they have to, I think, address first. And we all know that. We all know who the names are. No need to get into it. So in my mind, I think Joe Schoen will look to get somebody in free agency, a big name. I think he'll do one big name, and then he'll look to fill the roster with other mid to low tier talent to build the depth. But yeah, and again, I'll start with the inside linebacker if you want. I mean, I think it's kind of obvious, and everybody who follows the Giants knows where Joe Schoen came from. And there's somebody who's available from Buffalo by the name of Tremaine Edmonds.
Yep.
Only 24 years old, going to be 25 next year. So there's a guy, if Buffalo can't sign him, he's going to have a lot of people looking for him, wanting his services. And I would think if the price tag is with reason, I think Joe Schoen could look for this.
Yeah, I mean, look, I definitely think there's a bias within the organization towards Bills players, especially with the Bills. They got a lot of talent. They have to worry about paying guys. Yeah, Tremaine Edmonds is probably the front runner, if you will, to be that big free agent, right? If they bring back Jones and Saquon, which I think they do, we'll have enough money for like one more like $10 million plus contract guy. And Tremaine Edmonds might be that. He's going to fill a void. He's a very talented player. Probably going for $11 million, right? So nothing crazy, but we're probably looking at a Martinez type.
Yeah, well, he can go sideline to sideline. Martinez, I don't know, wasn't that sideline to sideline guy, but Martinez was great between the tackles. That's one thing he did very well. So I think Edmonds, that's what Mark. I know, Mark. We just said about the price tag. It all depends if it works. And again, we all think we know how the cap works, guys, and it's amazing what they can do with the cap. And suddenly money we didn't know was there becomes available. So
yeah, things tend to work themselves out with the cap a little bit. And, again, I mean, Jones is due. He's probably going to get a $30-some-odd million a year contract, but they could also backload it. They can backload it, and then, that will open up things a little bit. So what we're seeing, Mark, is somewhere in the low tens of what Tremaine Edmunds could command here.
Now, I do have two other guys at the inside linebacker, and one guy's name is David Long from the Tennessee Titans. Had a very good year, and he'll certainly be much lower, probably half of what Edmunds is going to ask for. When you look at Long, and there's another kid out of that Craig touched on, which he kind of stole my thunder. The kid out of played for Denver, Alex Singleton. A little older. He's 29 compared to 26. David Long is, but he's another tackling machine. Can go sideline to sideline, and they'll probably be half of what Edmunds is going to be. So there's options there. Who do you have at inside linebacker?
Well, I mean, I don't really have anybody specifically. Again, Edmunds is the guy, but there's a few different options here. I mean, like if they had crazy money, they go Deion Jones, right? But I don't think they're going to do that, and I don't really know if I want the big money to go to him. There's also Devin Bush, who's had a pretty disappointing career so far with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he did. He had a bad year last year.
But you know what? Think about it. How many guys go to as first-round picks to the Giants or get drafted by the Giants don't really quite work out for us, but then that next contract is when they kind of take off. For $3 million, it's worth considering.
Okay.
All right. Then you have Kyle Van Noy, who might just be, I know how we said that there's two needs at linebacker. Maybe that's where you put the second guy, just like, all right, he's all right. It's going to cost less than a few $1 million. But, I don't think he's like the long-term solution guy.
No, how old is he? About 34 now? How old is he?
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's played. He's played for a long time. And then you got Matakevich, who is probably going to go for about $7 million. I think he would plug it in, but I don't think he'd be the playmaker that Tremaine Edmunds would be.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
So look, I'm between you and me, I'm leaning here towards Tremaine Edmunds. I'd rather get him and then draft another guy, maybe fourth round. See if you can get a Micah McFadden type guy, but actually make a hit out of it. What are your thoughts?
Well, they're out there. If you talk about day three, there are some guys out there that can certainly fill in snaps like a Micah McFadden did. Micah did for the Giants this year. And if Shane does go for the top guy on free agency, it's definitely going to be Edmunds. I'm looking at Chris's guys. Yeah, he's not mentioned. Another kid there, he didn't put down there from Cincinnati. Everybody's overlooking him. Ivan Pace, the kid can play. He's a little bit shorter. It kind of reminds me of John Beeson. Remember John Beeson? And
oh yeah.
Yeah, he's 6 foot, about 240. The guy's a plug. A little fire plug, and he's very active. And day three, there's a day three inside linebacker right there. If you go that route. So, but any of these guys he's showing here are going to be taken in the top 3 rounds easily.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right. I mean, look, one of the things is, this isn't neat for the Giants because what's going to bring them from being a very good defense to a great defense is if they can stop the run a little bit better. Like if they get an inside linebacker that can plug up the run game, we're not talking about, okay, we got a decent defense now. Like we're pretty damn set. Could use another corner, maybe another defensive end, and then obviously, another inside linebacker, and then hope that our edges, Phibbs becomes that monster that we know he could be. But yeah, no, I'm not really worried about talent then going into next year.
Yeah, no doubt, Mike. They need to get better against the run. They really do. They did on offense. They got better running the ball. Now they need to get better stopping the run. And by doing that, you got to load up on the front seven. You got to get better in the front seven. Have to.
Any rebuild should probably just start with that.
Build the trenches, right?
Look at Philly. Look how interchangeable it was. They went 4-12 in 2020. And then completely rebounded because what they had was they already had the foundation built. At that point, then you bring in all the guys that are going to have to make it happen in ground, in the air, or make those stops. And that's what Philly did so well was like that. Like you can come back better when you have strong offensive line in front seven, but when you don't have that, you're relying on. Let's face it. That's probably what kept the Giants back from progressing any further was because their offensive line always sucked. So it didn't matter what quarterback you put back there; they're going to get killed. And then at that point, it doesn't matter what wide receiver you have out there; they're not even going to get the ball. And that's what was happening with the Giants for so many years. It's coming together more on the offensive line now, but Wish they just took 2 years and just built a monster offensive line. Anyway, that's besides the point. Next group of guys, wide receivers. Here's some options they can explore. Help me out if I'm missing any.
That's all right. Well, you go first.
DJ Chark, Paris Campbell, who I tend to lean more towards, Jacoby Myers, Juju. Not going to be the most popular option, but I have to throw him out there. He had a much better season. And then Alan Lazard. So go ahead. What are your thoughts?
No. I mean, look, just looking at it, out of those 5 that you just mentioned, I would take Campbell. A little younger, bigger, had a pretty good year last year. I think he had 50 plus receptions, 900 something plus yards, and he was probably the least expensive if you go after him than those guys that you mentioned.
And he was on a dysfunctional team too.
Say that again?
He was on a really dysfunctional team.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then you think you put him with the Giants system, and and who knows? He can click with Daniel Jones the same way that Hoxton's did. We don't know.
With how cheap he's probably going to go for relative to these other guys. I mean, my thought is, imagine drafting a wide receiver at number 1, and you get Paris Campbell. Just imagine that.
Well, I think
if
they do that, I think if they do that, I think it's easy to say the Giants have improved their wide receiver group.
Yeah.
If you can do that, yes.
We'd be heavily disappointed if that doesn't result in higher yield, kind of like Galladay and KT completely failed.
Yeah.
Do you consider OBJ a viable free agent? I do not.
I don't want him. I'll be honest with you, and that's just me. I think that ship has sailed. I don't think we need him.
Well, I don't know how much value OBJ brings anymore because, I mean, he wasn't all that great in Cleveland. He was okay with the Rams, but, I mean, at that point, like, it was him.
He had a great team around him. He had a great team.
Right. I mean, he had the slot safety cover or the slot cornerback covering him.
Yeah. Yeah. You get him, you get OBJ, you're expecting him to be your number 1 guy. And he's going to be 34 next year, I think. And he's not a number 1 guy anymore. And
I was definitely, like, towards the end of last year, I was more into the idea of him coming back. But then I saw that incident where, he was on the plane in Miami, causing the delay and getting into an argument. And
with an older
I don't
guy.
know what happened. But I just look, it's like, dude, you're 34 years old, man. Like, at what point? At what point? And again, look, if we were dealing with like one of the best wide receivers in football, I mean, say whatever you want to somebody on a plane in Miami. I don't care what you're doing. But, if you're going to be, if there's no guarantee you're going to be good, I don't even really want to consider it.
Yeah. Hey, Spartan, put up the one that Chris has at 843.
Sure. Real quick. Mark, we have his age.
Yeah. Just above Mark now. Yeah.
This one right here?
No, next one down. Yeah.
Sorry, other Chris. We have a lot of Chris's in the house.
Yeah. That's the $1 million one right there. I see a lot on Twitter. What would you do, Mike?
I'm going to say no because it's very expensive. And now, Chris, to that point is we said, well, me and Truth were talking about this last night, Chris. We were talking about wide receivers. I don't like it when a number 2 receiver becomes a number 1 receiver because it doesn't really tend to work out very well historically. I mean, one good example, I can't think of the guy's name, but the number 2 receiver for the Cowboys in the 90s when he went to the Bucs it doesn't translate well. They're going to get, now all of a sudden, they're the most targeted guy to shut down. And T. Higgins had a very good year. And if he could guaranteeingly do that for the Giants, I'd be more open for it. But the other thing you got to consider with him is the money. Like, as soon as we trade for him, we got to sign him pretty much. And that's what's turning me off from it a little bit.
Yeah, you're looking at A.J. Brown money.
Yeah, right, exactly. And don't get me wrong, Chris. Like, I'm not Mr. like, oh, talent. I don't want to spend the money there. I mean, I want the Giants to acquire talent, whatever means necessary. But I don't think T. Higgins is the guarantee, and that's why I'd be a little concerned moving forward.
Yeah.
This plan.
Yeah, I think if it comes to businesses, it's going to be you got to pass on him because they have other things they got to take care of. You think about if you get Higgins and sign him, you might not be able to bring back Dexter Lawrence. the following week. You may not be able to bring back someone else, like maybe McKinney, if he's going to be if he takes that next step up, has a great year next year, So you have to think 2 years ahead. I think a GM has to think that way when he has these opportunities that have come before him now. Now, what is this Chris is talking about?
He was counter arguing my point about Plax was a wide receiver 2 for the Steelers. And
who was number 1 for Steelers when Plax?
It was Hines Ward. So Ward got more catches and more in open field leading up to the red zone than Plax did once he got to the red zone. Plax was used more because I believe Plaxico finished that year with more catches.
Yeah, but if you look at that. If the Giants back then had to get Plaxico, give up a number 1 and give him that kind of money, maybe they wouldn't have gotten him either.
Right, like if there was a trade involved. And the Giants in 2005 were hunting for a wide receiver, and they were ready to spend money because they were looking at a lot of players.
Yeah, but I think they just got him in free agency, right?
Yeah. Mark loves T. Higgins, thinks he's number 1. Show that. Yeah, that's fair. Chase was out. And he did step up. Again, I wouldn't mind it. I mean, I wouldn't be complaining to the high heavens about it, but it's probably not how I would approach it.
Yeah. These guys, again, have to realize you get him, you're sacrificing someone else you may like the Giants to hold on to.
Yeah, I don't mind it when we're giving up picks. I don't mind it when we're giving up money. I don't like it when we're giving up picks and money.
Yeah.
But again, Chris, worth considering. And if the Giants do that, well, hope to God, we get some value there.
That's right. If Shane does that, he knows more about the budget, knows about anything about the Giants than we do. So you have to trust him, and you have to accept it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then real quick on the other guys. I mean, look, Juju, I don't really like the idea of it. He's commanding a massive dollar amount like that. So he had one good rebound year, but again, you showed out on the Chiefs, who are loaded at wide receiver. Everyone's taking a pay cut to just stand there. I don't like the idea of him. DJ Chark is the option if they want to go like the high dollar route. And again, that's I'm not as comfortable with him. I'd almost rather do the T. Higgins trade than to even consider DJ Chark. I feel like he's going to bust out for the Giants.
Yeah.
Do you have any opinion on DJ Chark? I don't.
To me, he's a good wide receiver, but I don't like him on the Giants. I would rather go a different route than him. Again, he'll cost too much. Yeah, I think for the Giants, I'd rather get Higgins. If you're going to go big, go big.
Yeah. Yep. Real quick, Chris D. Shane already singled that we probably will not be getting a number 1 this time around. Can you clarify, Chris, what you mean by that? Do you mean they're not going to get a wide receiver at all this year in the offseason, or do you don't think they're going to sign a number 1 receiver?
Yeah, I think he means free agency.
Yeah, I agree. But you get Paris Campbell on a good deal. We'll see what could happen there. All right, we've talked a lot about receiver, and rightfully so. There's a lot to talk about. Centers, let's talk about them.
Well, centers to me, if you're going to go center and you really want to make a statement, again, like I said early in the show, I see Joe Shane going for one big free agent signing. And if you're going to go for your center, you got the kid Connor McGovern out of the Dallas Cowboys. That guy's a player. That guy can play. He'll fit right into the Giants center position, and he'll make that offensive line much better.
They have 3 options if they want to go the route of like the $12 million man. Connor McGovern, Garrett Bradbury, Bradley Bozeman. All of them are going to go for around the same cost. So they actually have their pick at center if they want to spend that kind of money.
Yeah.
I understand if they don't, but there is that, again, that we were talking about earlier, there is that leadership component there that does make sense with centers. So, I mean, if they want to spend money there, I mean, screw it, go for it. Or see if you could backload one of these guys' contract, right? Because I would love to get Edmonds. It would be very difficult to re-sign Saquon, re-sign Jones, get Edmonds, and then also get one of these top 3 centers. But
no, you won't. No, you're right.
No, unless they find some cap space. So
yeah, that's why I think it'll be a one big signing, and then he'll fill the rest of the roster with low tier free agents, waiver wires, things like that. Guys getting released. That's like you did last year.
Yeah, I agree. Now, look, I mean, if we're talking about a $5 million guy, you got and like a $7.5 million guy, Ethan Pocic. So now, Grant, once you get to that level, those types of players tend to be more like the Glowinski's of the world. Like it's a little bit hit or miss. And again, we want a good center.
Would you say Brew and Pocic are better than Gates when Gates, played primary center?
No, not really.
Yeah, so I don't know if they're going to bring Gates back. I would like to see them because he is versatile, guard and center.
He's good. He's also a good component. Like because I think he's still good on the offensive line, and he's a good leader in the locker room.
Yeah, I mean, look, they made him captain. That's pretty impressive,
Exactly. And so my feeling about Gates is they'll bring him back. He's good enough to play and start on the offensive line. And the Giants do this way too often. A guy gets hurt and they just give up on him. I don't want them to make the same mistake they made with Bradbury. I said Bradbury, obviously, there's a financial reason more so, but people gave up on him in 2021 while he was on the field. They kind of said, he's not playing that good. And that pissed me off because I'm like, guys, he played great in 2020. He could always play good again. Gates is going to do the same thing. We're going to watch him play for another team and kill it. I don't want to watch that happen. So bring back, keep him at guard. And then look, again, any of these guys that we talked about would love a solid center.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, whatever the Giants do in free agency, usually kind of directs what they're going to do in a draft.
Right. So, if they sign a receiver, they'll draft a center, is kind of what you're saying, right?
Right. Yeah. Unless somebody fabulous falls to them at 25, wide receiver, who shouldn't be there, they may take them, but I highly doubt that. But yeah, whatever they do in free agency, I think you'll see them change and take a different direction than round one and not do the same position.
I agree. Well, look, we're coming up in the hour. Let's hit our last guy. Cornerbacks. Let's talk about some of those options, right? James Bradbury can come back for us at a much higher price than we paid for him originally. $17 million for Bradbury now.
Yeah.
The Eagles are getting a lot of value out of him.
Yeah, we don't need that.
I tell you, here's a guy that I don't mind the idea of. Patrick Peterson probably goes for around $6.5 million. I don't think he's bad anymore. I think he's still a pretty solid player. But maybe having that veteran mentorship capability might be beneficial with him. Everybody in the chat would love to hear what you think about Patrick Peterson.
And you see him. How old is he now? Do you know?
Patrick Peterson should be in his early to mid 30s. Let me see. Patrick.
He was from LSU, right?
I don't know, but when he was drafted, I think I was in middle school.
Yeah, I think he went to LSU.
Here we go. He's 32.
Okay. Now, didn't he have a hard time against Hopkins? Is that the Patrick Peterson we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, look, the list that you have here, and I'll let you go over them, the rest of the guys you have up there. He is the least expensive one.
He's the least expensive. And in 20 years, the Giants can say they had a Hall of Fame cornerback, even if he sucked with us.
But I can definitely see them getting a player outside from the draft, get a player in free agency. It may not be a high tier guy. Any of the guys you mentioned, probably not, but it could be somebody mid tier.
Most of the guys that I have on this list that I sent over, Jonathan Jones, Emmanuel Mosley, Rocky Sin, I mean, they're all going to go for good money, but that is the nature of cornerbacks these days, is they're going to go for a higher dollar figure, but maybe that's why they might consider drafting a guy, because that's going to be a lot cheaper.
Yep, and I like Chris there because that was my guy, Cameron Sutton.
He wanted to bring him up, yeah.
Yeah, that's the guy who I would like to get. He's younger, had a very good year, and he would probably be in that same price range as Patrick Peterson that you have up there.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a guy who I would look at. I haven't really looked at the numbers on Dean.
I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, Dean, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend I know what his numbers are, but I'll look into him. but I did look up Sutton, and he had a good year. So there's a guy that could be a possibility. So
yeah,
it's going to be interesting this year. I can tell you that. It's going to be interesting his second year, Shane. He's going to have a little more money. He's going to have he's more familiar with the Giants. They had a good year. He's going to feed off that, and he's going to get this team, going forward, not taking 2 steps back.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I see him doing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, my imagination is that he would lock up Jones and Barkley, but of those two, if he moves on from one of them, I would imagine he's going to go with whichever one's asking too much for the market price.
Well,
and that's probably going to be Saquon more likely than I can imagine. Like if Saquon's 25% above, they're going to say, probably not.
Well, they're going to have to they got to franchise tag him, because if he leaves, at least they get compensation.
What if he doesn't play though? That's my only concern with Saquon next year.
Well, he'll sit out, you think?
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll do that. He'll force him. It usually comes down to this. When a guy balks about a franchise tag, there could be some holding out, but eventually they work it out when they trade him. They trade him. And
well, then that's what they got to do. They got to franchise tag him, because that saves a lot of money for the Giants.
Yeah, it does. And you could take that money and put it towards that center you want to get. Maybe put it towards make the trade, and then you have the money to pay the other guy. It gives them options.
Yeah, and I will say this: if they did have to trade Saquon and they got draft capital, the one thing that is nice is, I mean, the greatest thing to do is have a running back on a rookie deal. Like, it's the easiest to move on from. Quarterback. That takes development, so it's not like you can just willy-nilly pick up a guy.
Yes, and I'll tell you, we're not going to go over the running back prospects, but when we do, you're going to be surprised the depth of the running back position in this draft. It's not as bad as everybody thinks it is.
For sure. But, all right, Truthful, any final thoughts here? We got a couple minutes left, and then obviously next week we're going to go into players.
No, listen, I'm just excited that we're back doing this. I think we're going to have a great couple of months up until the draft. We got, like you mentioned earlier, we got a handful of guests that we're going to have on the show, talk about different positions. And, of course, we welcome feedback like we did today from the fans. Loved it. And I'm looking forward to this. And it's going to be a good draft for the Giants. I just have a feeling.
I agree. One last piece. Running back draft depth looks good. Mark, you're right.
Yep.
And again, the talent at running back position gets pushed back now. A lot of those guys don't go day one, so it's like there's plenty of availability day 2, day 3.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, Truth. Thank you. Giants fans, thank all of you. We got an exciting offseason to look forward to. God bless. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Have a good rest of your week and a good weekend.
See you next week, boys.